Warning, this podcast may contain profanity, strong opinions, and hilarity. This is a story of a time long ago.
Or perhaps a tale of grim darkness in the far future.
An age of myth and legend.
In which there is only war.
When the gods of chaos were petty and cruel.
And plagued mankind with all manners of suffering.
Only two men dared to challenge their power.
Brohammer.
Hello, hello, hello.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Welcome back to the second episode of Brohammer, a Warhammer podcast.
The sophomoric podcast, if I believe that to be true.
Yeah, we're back. A little bit of a false start. We did record about an hour of gold. Gold, Jerry.
Pure gold.
But unfortunately, we lost most of that to a technical difficulty. Who knew that a microphone needed to be updated?
That's it.
Who knew?
Just like everything else with a microchip or some sort of light in it.
Yeah, you know, podcast life, hashtag first world problems, but hey, we're back and we're raring to go.
That's it.
Yeah, so essentially, you're back with your host, Jordan, aka Lamian Maximus, aka Chosen Son of the War Master, here with my beloved co-host.
Jared. We're going to work with the wise one on this one. I don't know what that necessarily refers to. Because it's certainly not my in-depth knowledge of Warhammer, but hey, that's what we're here for, after all.
It was sort of a moniker gifted by one of our lovely listeners who described me as the loud one and Jared as the wise one, so I really liked that. I thought that was quite an apt dubbing of a nickname for my beloved co-host.
We'll have to see how it goes. So
yeah, so look, as I did mention, we did lose a little bit of sound and content last time we did record, so we do apologise if we're struggling from a little bit of deja vu here as we go through the show notes, but we'll do our best to keep it straight.
That's it.
Awesome. So look, just want to say first of all, thank you so much to everybody for all the likes, subscriptions, DMs, support. It's been quite overwhelming, to be honest. The love that's been sliding into my DMs lately has just been really, really heartwarming stuff. You know, people asking when the next episode's coming out, saying how much they enjoyed it, and asking for the brothers baritone to return.
Yeah, I like the alliteration on that. So
yeah, no, it's been great. Like, honestly, every time I open my phone lately, it's just like, oh, you guys, you know, it's been really, really good. So, and also what's come in through the DMs and comments and YouTube notifications and all that sort of stuff have been some FAQs, some frequently asked questions. So we've got a few for you today.
Yeah.
And Jared is going to
jump into the AMA of Ask Me Anything, which many of you have, so that's worked out well. In
true Wise One fashion, we're going to deep dive into a couple of things that everybody seems to want to know. So take it away.
So I guess you know, based on the name of the Instagram and your choices, why Lamian Maximus in terms of a name?
Yeah, so look, Lamian Maximus, when I first...
Lamian, there we go.
Lamian, correct, Lamian Maximus. So when I first joined Instagram, I looked around to see, you know, on a personal account, what everybody was calling themselves, and the whole alias thing was pretty much the go. Just rolling up with my full name and what seemed a bit boring, to be honest. So I looked at my painting desk and I thought a little bit about what I'm into and what I've got. And so Lamian obviously comes from the GW technical paint Lamian medium, which for those of you in the know is basically a shade paint without pigment, and it's also my thinning agent of choice. I use an absolute ton of it. I like to keep my coats nice and smooth and nice and thin, you know, 2 thin coats, all that. And it also happens to double kind of coolly as it's also a place in the old world, Lamia, which is where I believe Neferata and Nagash originally hail from, sort of like fantasy Egypt, where the vampire and the undead guys come from. And a little bit of a play on words for those of you who don't know. So Lamian medium actually means like a medium or a psychic person from Lamia. And also the technical paint happens to be a quote-unquote finger quotes medium. So that works on a couple of levels, which I really like. And the Maximus comes from my favourite mark of power armour, which is the Mark IV Maximus armour. So not only do I use Lamian medium to the Maximus, Maximus works on a couple of levels for me. So yeah, Lamian Maximus, there it is.
At the end of the day, I think it's always funny, you know, if you're searching for it, you have to pay close attention to the spelling to make sure that it pops up. So
it's a tricky one. Like, people ask me, oh, what's your Insta? And I have to, like, I can write it fine, but when I have to spell it out loud, I have to do a bit of a double take on myself sometimes.
Find the picture of the green boys and then go from there.
Oh, look, the profile. I change my profile picture like my underwear. I can never settle on one. It depends what I've painted, recently and things like that. But
it's on rotation.
Yeah, check out Lamian_Maximus on Instagram for all your hobby needs.
I guess moving on from that, the other most popular question asked was why the Sons of Horus in terms of as far as the channel and why it started. That's what you kind of focused on. Clearly, you've moved on to a number of projects like most painters and hobbyists do, but why Sons of Horus?
Yeah, look, that's a big one for me, and a question I get sort of quite frequently. Look, it really boils down to, anyone who ever gets into Space Marines, it's kind of a bit overwhelming, all the colours and schemes and tropes and things like that. And after doing my research on the heresy and the sort of 18 available legions, I had initially gone straight for the Emperor's Children, purple being my favourite colour. But upon deeper research, almost like a horoscope sometimes, when you read a horoscope, even if it's not your own, you can always find little things that you maybe connect with or relate to. And when I stumbled upon the 16th Legion in order, like I literally read them from start to finish, from Dark Angels to Alpha Legion.
How many legions are there in total?
So there's 20, but 2 of them are classified / expunged and removed from history. And Games Workshop do that on purpose to leave sort of 2 of the 20 blank for you to essentially create your own.
Right.
To basically fill those spaces. A lot of people sort of...
that personal approach.
Yeah, a lot of people muse, about what happened to them and what they were called, and are sort of aching for them to be revealed. But Games Workshop has stated that they will never reveal them because the mystery and the sort of gap in the lore is more valuable.
Yeah, being ambiguous, or
exactly right. And as I said, it allows you to create your own legion and slot them into the
choose
lore.
Your own adventure, paint your own army.
Choose your own adventure, exactly right. So look, the Sons of Horus, it was like an absolute tidal wave of me relating to them when I read and delved deeper into their lore. So. I use wargaming as wargaming and painting and hobbying as a stress release and meditation. I also use it as in a funny kind of way to connect to our deceased grandfather who has a military history. He was a veteran of World War II and the Greek Civil War, and went through some pretty heavy stuff early in life. And he's very, very special to the whole family and all that sort of thing. And me being a bit of a military history buff and knowing all about where he was and what he went through and that sort of thing, he served in the 16th Battalion of the Partisan Militia in Macedonia in the Greek Civil War. So the number 16, obviously that's a big one. They also wore a very similar green uniform, which were actually hand-me-down communist Russian uniforms. So the Viridian green and the 16, if that's not creepy enough. And then, they're from a planet called Sithonia, which kind of sounds like Macedonia. The Sons of Horus have a very small decapitation strike force kind of battle style, which was also...
Guerrilla style.
Yeah, guerrilla warfare. So, I mean, that's exactly how Grandpa survived the war in their sort of little... They were essentially the resistance as far as protecting themselves from, genocide and oppression and a whole bunch of horrible stuff that was going on. So, and as I said, it's a bit like a horoscope. You can read into anything, including the Emperor's Children. They're all about the color purple and perfection and all that sort of stuff, which I relate to as well. But once I'd finished reading about the Sons of Horus, I was like, these are my boys. This is my crew. This is where I'm at. So
it's what's happening.
Yeah, so I mean, I do delve into other Trader Legions. I do love the whole lore around the Istvan 3, and Istvan 5 and the Drop Site Massacre and stuff like that, which incorporates all of the Trader Legions. I not only prefer all of their paint schemes, but their lore is just so cool. They each hail to one of the patron chaos gods. The Sons of Horus being obviously, it is the Horus heresy, so he is the big man himself. It's just it lines up perfectly for me. So yeah.
And speaking of which, in terms of that, I guess the third most asked question was, why do you paint? But more importantly, why do you paint the way that you paint? Because everyone has their own strategy. From what I know, it's either you might take 2 minutes to paint a miniature, you might take 2 years, you might never be quite happy with the final results. But in terms of your own style, and I guess the approach after picking the hobby up after that kind of teenage hiatus to now where you're a little bit older, a little bit wiser, there's actually a lot more I guess material out there to learn. Because if you think about it, when you first started painting, or delved into it in the late 90s, early 2000s, the closest thing you ever had was the Citadel miniature painting guide that was 2 pages, or recommendations. Now we have experts, which we'll delve into later, but why do you paint the way that you paint?
Yes, I mean, a lot of stuff there, but massive question, one that I get sort of quite frequently. 3 adjectives that describe my painting style, as said to me by many people who've commented and looked at my Instagram profile, are sort of clean, neat, and crisp. And look, I do thoroughly enjoy those adjectives. Keep them coming, guys, because look, the reason so 2 part of the question. The reason I paint, as I said, is for sort of art therapy, relaxation, meditation. I like to paint heresy miniatures while listening to heresy audio books. I go full immersion. I love to, it's my little fantasy rabbit hole that I jump into, and I love it to pieces. The way that I paint, so the neat, clean, crisp style, comes from a couple of things. So, as my co-host would know, I do have medical OCD. So I am quite an anal retentive, neat, perfectionist, precision-based.
Your workspace photos will attest to that.
Yeah, so I mean, you only have to take a 5-second glance at all my pictures there and see my working space and things like that to see that this guy doesn't like a mess, and that like transfers into my painting style. I think I also, as you and I both mentioned, I think in the initial episode of the podcast, we're both pretty. We like to stick to a plan. We like to, find what would be the quote-unquote, finger quotes, air quotes, like correct procedure to do something.
If you're going to do something, do it right. And, it kind of harkens back to whether it be, following a recipe. Yes, there's opportunities to add a bit of extra salt, or, add a little bit more liquid, which you in itself, you do in terms of mixing paints. But if it comes down
gives
to
you that baseline to work from.
The preparation, I think what I admire most about your painting is the prep work even before you go into painting it, because in some instances you only get one shot. So I know the big Abaddon or Donny Boy, like in terms of
Donny
painting
Boy.
the face and the commitment to that, which was that lovely bit of commission work. There's certain challenges and strengths that you want to get right. So
old Abdomen, the despoiler. He was basically he's to date probably the culmination of all my skills, put into the one miniature. I'm pretty proud of that one. So I mean, I take great inspiration from Duncan Rhodes. Obviously, he's probably my favorite painting tutorialist or YouTube content creator. And watching his videos initially, and so it's a whole bunch of things. So the Heresy being essentially like a historical game, it has pretty stringent, guidelines as far as the colours you use. You can take liberties here and there, like anything, but I really want to put things on the table that are easily recognisable as the Emperor's Children, the Sons of Horus, the Word Bearers. I don't want anyone having to ask, is that a Blood Angel? Is that a Word Bearer? So I do stick to, essentially the guidelines, but then everybody elaborates and does their own little.
Well, outside of that though, with your other teams or little armies, whether it be the orcs or the dwarves, like there's kit bashing, there's variation there. So it's just like anything. You're kind of remaining pure with the Horus, but outside of that, you're certainly experimenting. And
exactly. And I mean, there's models that they release that are special characters and named characters, but there's also, for example, if you read into the lore of the Sons of Horus, the way they dress, and every legion has their own little characteristics and style. They're all roughly based on real world nations. Like I think the Death Guard are from Eastern Europe, sort of Albania, that sort of area. The Sons of Horus sort of initially on the planet Terra were from like Persia. So, the Viridian green and gold is like a Persian kind of trope. The Sons of Horus love their top knots as well, which for those of you that don't know the lingo, that's basically a ponytail that comes out the top of your helmet.
Interestingly, have they ever, because the world is so expansive, but it would be kind of cool, but unless someone's done it on, say, a DeviantArt or something like that. Has anyone ever tried to do a world map of the current Warhammer universe?
Oh, yeah, that all exists. Yeah,
that does exist.
There's genuine
stuff.
They call... So they refer to Earth, as we know it, in the solar system, as Terra, Terra, which is obviously a play on words for like terra firma, as in Earth. But because it's set so far in the future, it was originally called Earth. So essentially the story is based around our planet, and then we devolved into such chaos and civil war as a human species that destroyed ourselves to the point where we became these roaming gangs of techno barbarians, and then old mate the Emperor in his beautiful gold wonderment stepped up and decided, no, I'm going to unite these fools and create, holy terror.
Saying fools makes me think of the Warriors come out to play. Like, doesn't end as well for the Emperor in that. But
it never ends well for the Emperor, unfortunately. But he doesn't really deserve it because he's evil, in my opinion, just quietly. That's a whole other rabbit hole there. So look, I mean, Duncan Rhodes, massive influence. I love a lot of other painting guide guys like Pete the Wargamer, Sonic Sledgehammer. A lot of guys out there, I mean, you can take something from everyone, but I actually dub my painting style as hashtag Dunkchitsu. Anybody's familiar with John Blanche and Blanchitsu would know sort of what I'm getting at there. But, clean, tidy, crisp, and also because of my OCD and things like that, I find it extremely difficult to paint things like battle damage and weathering. So that's a real challenge for me that I'm starting to incorporate into my painting style. That'll come a little bit later. But initially, for me to try to paint something like camouflage or weathering or battle damage, it kind of looked like, you tried to program a robot to do something random, and he just couldn't handle it.
And unfortunately, it's not going to happen over time. So
not overnight. That's it. Yeah. So it's a process for me, but I take great pleasure in painting something clean and crisp, and I love everybody's comments about my edge highlighting, which is something that I practice a lot.
You might go blind like a chainmailer doing it.
But sometimes I forget to blink. It's unreal. But I really take pride in the procedure, the prepping the brush, all that sort of stuff. And for me to paint something and actually look at it and call it finished and be happy with the result is a real personal victory for me with my OCD and perfectionism and things like that. So I get a lot out of the hobby. I've had a lot of personal growth. During the last 2 years,
like most hobbies that anyone has. And
as I said, I got into it initially for a bit of stress relief and not wanting to paint canvas paintings of forests that I didn't care about and things like that. And Warhammer was just the perfect culmination of immersion and.
But in your own way, you found your own Bob Ross in Duncan and that type of following there.
And look, I mean, he's great. I can't say enough good things about him. I think, being the face of Warhammer for so long and now being off on his own with the Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy, he's not only somebody that an experienced painter can learn a hint or tip or trick from here and there, but if I was a 12-year-old kid again, just getting into the hobby, the way that he explains things to you without being
condescending,
no patronization, no condescension. It's a lot of information, and it's just put to you in such a way that if you took your 12-year-old kid into a Games Workshop store and he was the employee there, you'd be wrapped. Do you know what I mean?
That's probably how he is what he is to that extent in terms of personality, but also talent. So
I mean, not to dwell on my boy Duncan too long. I do love him very much, and I could talk about him for hours. But he described himself in a Warhammer interview once as a very shy, anxious child. So I guess he obviously, with his newfound sort of confidence and fame, he keeps that in the back of his mind, I think, when he passes on knowledge and
staying humble.
Yeah, he's almost instructing his 12-year-old self, I believe, in that sense, and it's a great thing for the hobby. It really, I'm so glad that he's still doing what he does best. So,
speaking of that, I guess the final question for this little AMA, which we might try and do another one if there's variations based on whatever happens in the future. But why no Primaris Marines on your Instagram?
Yeah, this is a big one. I get this one. Like, for a while there, it was almost daily, and it's still, at least once or twice a week. Why don't you paint Primaris Marines? Why no Primaris Marines? Why aren't there any Primaris Marines on your page? Look, I'm a heresy guy. I mean, when I first got into Warhammer, as I'm sure I've described before, I did a massive Google search on every model. That I went through the whole catalogue, the Forge World website, the whole lot. I love Mark IV Maximus armor. I love Mark III Iron armor. I love everything about the heresy. I don't so much dislike the Primaris Marines as much as I just prefer Heresy Marines. It's very much an armor, helmet aesthetic. So the Primaris Marines have been described as like Mark IV Marines on steroids. And look, they're beautifully crafted models. And it also comes from the fact that obviously Primaris Marines are not only like an upgrade or true scaling of the Space Marine in the sense of the actual physical model, they actually are part of the lore. So in the new 41st millennium, Horus Heresy taking place obviously in the 31st millennium, 10,000 years prior to where we are currently in the storyline, they didn't exist. So you really, I mean, you can do whatever you like. They're your plastic toy soldiers. But if you're playing accurate historical heresy with other accurate historical heresy nuts, nobody's letting you put Primaris on the table. It's just not done. I've seen a lot of beautiful Primaris Marines painted in heresy schemes, and a lot of guys are doing what's called true scaling now, where they get the old Marines and they cut them halfway through the calf muscle and jack them up so that they're not, you know, because I mean the old Marines are disproportionate and stumpy, but it's a beloved little hero scale thing that I think I'm used to. And at the end of the day, I am a grumpy old man who's adverse to change. So you know, we may if we're still doing this podcast and I still have an Instagram in 4 or 5 years, hey, it might be Primaris Central by then. You know, just it always takes me a while to warm up and.
Well, it's like that Arnott's biscuit selection. You might instantly go for the Scotch finger. You might go for the yo-yo. They're very similar, but also respectfully, those that have their favourites know what they're going to grab first and probably have 1 or 2 bites of instead of, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not open. You're not closing off the variety.
No, look, I mean, and as I said, I'm a heresy man. I don't currently play or collect a 40k army. So, you know, in the future, if a 40k Space Marine Legion really grabbed me and it made sense to do so, then it's we're off to Primaris Town. You know what I mean? But for the time being, I'm very much a heresy gamer, heresy boy. So so I mean that's why there are no Primaris Marines. If anybody for now, like I said, nothing is final, and I do take a while to change my ways. But you know, if somebody wanted a Primaris Marine commission painted or something like that, I'd 100% be all for that. I mean, in fact, technically, I've painted 1.5 Primaris Marines. So Abdomen the Despoiler is actually standing on a red Scorpion Primaris Marine in the one I painted, and he's also got a couple of Blood Raven trophy helmets about his person. So so I technically have painted Primaris Marine, and I actually have a set of easy to build intercessors that probably have about 40 coats of paint on the poor buggers. They're my little test Marines that live on my desk that I just try colours out on and slap things on because they were given to me in a Games Workshop store, and they've become the test boys. So
nice. So I think stand by and shoot to next week. Primaris might even be there, but highly unlikely. But
anything can happen. Anything can happen.
So I guess moving on from the AMA, what current projects are you working on? I know there's always this kind of, is it not March, but there's certain months where there's little not competitions, but kind of community-based challenges that people try and undertake and kind of update one another on. So.
Yeah, they do. They pop up every now and then. I sort of created my own for the month of August, which I dubbed Wargust. So that's Warhammer plus August equals Wargust, not to be confused with Wargust, which is like an orc thing. But I mean, the orcs get October, so I feel like they get enough months already, But basically what happened was, because obviously what are we now, the 4th of September, we're still sort of in the, I wouldn't call it the height of COVID, and we'll try to leave COVID out of this podcast as much as possible, but we are still, experiencing, not lockdown, but restrictions and things like that. So me personally, I basically looked forward and I saw that I had a month on my hands where I had not a lot booked in work-wise, doing a bit of study, staying home, and I thought, hey, I'm going to really try to put a dent in my 2 armies that I've got on the go currently, which is my Caradron Overlord 2,000 point list and my 2,500 point of Horus Heresy stuff. Sons of Horus, of course. So I dubbed August Wargust, and I said I was going to do, try to do at least a minimum of maybe 4 or 5 hours of hobby per day to really put a dent in these 2 projects.
Chip away at it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I was posting up every day on Instagram. Things were going really, really well. Got to day 23, and unfortunately had 2 days without power in the studio. So pitch black, couldn't do a thing. And it was kind of a little bit disheartening because I feel like I really could have powered through the month, although I would have probably been even more burnt out when I did eventually stop, But yeah, made it 23 days, and then, the power outages sort of lost the mojo, lost the momentum. So, sort of left the streak there, but...
Still, 23 days isn't a bad streak.
Hey, look, got some stuff done, got some Marines together, got a few things, base coated and edge highlight. I mean, progress is progress, really. So
a few more minis on the table there in terms of chipping away at it.
And of course, I mean, nobody can really play big full-scale games. Still can't play in the store, still can't paint in the store. So the only games we've been getting are around the house and, beer and pretzels, friends sort of stuff. So
yeah, and I don't like everyone to their own, but I know that a lot of... people would then kind of turn to the electronic or the game versions of Warhammer to kind of play online.
Like your video games or your TTS, your tabletop simulator.
Well, I know that Blood Bowl, actually, they just released a most recent update to the video game or another version of it, awesome. So that's interesting. But in terms of that, though, like you have been certainly keeping busy on the Instagram, and as a result, we got a bit of a cheeky 4K. We hit that, well, when we say collective that milestone, and so now you're working towards a 4K giveaway, which, if I'm right, has it been announced?
It has, yeah. So just a bit of background here. So when I first started Instagram, I was completely blown away. I remember getting triple digits, getting 100 followers, and I couldn't believe it. I imagined like 100 people in an auditorium staring at me, and I couldn't believe 100 people gave a shit enough to look at what I was doing. And I mean, I still remember that feeling at 100 followers. And I remember around the sort of 700 follower mark, I thought, you know what, if I hit 1,000, God forbid, I'm going to do something special. And a lot of people do like a giveaway, and this is not obviously throwing shade on anyone else or what everyone else does, but the more common giveaway that you see would be like maybe like a Games Workshop Start Collecting box, or like a box of terrain, or like something that you purchase and then you ask people to like and follow you, and you pick a winner after a certain period of time, blah blah blah. But I wanted to do something a little bit more personal, so I decided that every 1,000 followers I would post up, and I'd leave it open for a week, and I would put it out to the public to ask, post up and say, who's your favorite, like Horus Heresy Legion, or it's even expanded into the Badab War and a few more chapters and things now. But the prize being that I would then contact that person, and I would custom build and paint them a Marine to their taste, to maybe the Legion they already collect, and match their paint scheme. Or if they wanted to, say, start a new Legion or a new chapter, I would do the first one for them and then provide a tutorial for them to continue on. So, it's been awesome. I'm up to, we just hit 4,000 followers, which I'm super, super excited about.
How long has that been overall? Not that you can like divide or break it down, but how long have you had the Instagram page up?
It's about 1.5 years. So it took me quite a while to get to 1,000. And then from 1,000 to 2,000, I feel like I blinked, and I was already, I was literally painting the 2,000 follower giveaway before the first one had even arrived in the mail to the first winner, and then the third one happened quite quickly as well. And then I found a little bit of a lull between 3,000 and 4,000 actually, because I took a bit of a break to paint Age of Sigmar, and it turns out, unfortunately, Age of Sigmar are not as popular as the Horus Heresy, so the old followers weren't rolling in as quickly as they had previously. But so look, I've hit 4,000 as of about, I think, 2 weeks ago. The competition has been run, it has been won, it has been...
Do you know roughly how many people entered the competition? I don't know if you can do that with it.
I can. Yeah. So, I mean, what I do is I count the posts, and then I put them into I get my housemate to put them into a random number generator to pick the winner, so there's no biases, there whatsoever. So, I think, the first one was around 200 people. Then, it goes up by about 100 people every time. So, I think it was around the 400-ish, 450-ish mark this time.
Who was the lucky winner this time around?
So it was actually, I'll just bring up his actual Instagram name just so I don't get it wrong, but it's a guy in California, and he chose the Imperial Fists, which I'm super excited about because I've never painted an Imperial Fist before. The first winner, I did an Alpha Legionary. I then did...
Where were they situated?
So the Alpha Legion went to Japan. The second one was a Salamander that went to the UK. And the third one was a Minotaur that went to Texas, United States. Yeah. So the current winner was savage.miniatures.painting, and he's based in California on the west coast of the United States. So second Marine going to the United States, and I look
globetrotting, yeah.
Yeah, look, I love the idea that I have painted little works of art in the four corners of the globe. And that they actually,
and counting,
yeah, and they get used in games, and they're charging across a play mat or a diorama, on the other side of the planet. I get so chuffed about that. So I'm literally in the sort of planning stages now for this Imperial Fist, and it does take me a little while sometimes. Obviously, life gets in the way and things like that. But I find it a really, really good palette cleanser as well. I've just spent 23 days hammering the Sons of Horus, and now I get to paint some yellow and do another freehand chapter badge, and just the excitement of the and I always pick up a couple of skills along the way when I do these guys. So look, I love everything about it.
It's a nice little portfolio as well.
So. Yeah, so look, I just want to thank everybody again, all the follows, the thumbs up, the likes, the support. It is, truly, truly appreciated. And this is how I sort of try to, apart from the podcast, obviously, the wise ones help. But I like to try to think I give back to the community. Anybody who ever wants to ask a question, or how I painted something, what colors I used, I try to post up little swipe tutorials on Instagram as much as possible, just to...
Speaking of which, though, in terms of, you just said giving back to the community or projects, I mean, not to undersell the 4K giveaway, but in terms of scale of things, or just opportunity that pleasantly has come along thanks to whether it be Instagram or your own following and friends. You have a new project, the Heresy Kill Team project.
Oh my god, yes. So I'm going to gush about this a little bit because I am so very excited. So I am about to be technically a published author / illustrator / photographer within the community. Yeah, and look, it's all thanks to the extremely talented at 2 Thin Quotes ossified. You can find him on Instagram. Look, he's fantastic, and a couple of months ago I discovered his free to download Heresy Kill Team. I wouldn't call it a core manual, but more of like a supplement, as far as if you want to play, those of you who play 40k Kill Team, it essentially gives you all the data cards and information and stuff you need to play Kill Team with your Heresy miniatures, which is a fantastic thing because, as a lot of you know, if you're building a Heresy army, it takes forever, and you're looking at minimum 2,000 points worth of guys. But with this sort of thing, you can actually take, as we do, I get 10 Emperor's Children of mine, 10 Sons of Horus, and we play a great game of Horus Heresy Kill Team. And so the first one's called Kill Team in the Age of Darkness, obviously the Age of Darkness being the 31st millennium when the Horus Heresy is set. And the soon to be released Istvan 3 campaign book, which will feature a 14-page spread of my work, which includes painting guides for the 4 main traitor legions, full photographs, and I just need to give one more shout out here in regards to this project to my good friend Big D _hardcore_hobby for the lend of his beautifully painted Necromunda Zone Mortalis terrain, which features
certainly made a big difference.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I like to think my photos on my Instagram are pretty good, but when you set up your miniatures on an immersive little diorama world of like a Factorum or Manufactorum Mechanicus sort of ZM style terrain, I mean, look, it will speak for itself when it's released. It's due to be released around hopefully the 20th of September. So look, if you keep an eye on my Instagram, and do check out at 2 Thin Quotes as well, it will be free to download. This is 100% fan-made content. Neither of us get any money for it. I was lucky enough when he was basically essentially advertising or asking for people to help him out with the visual side of things, because he's a graphic design whiz and does all the actual in-game book writing. So 100% credit to him for all that stuff. But he asked if anybody, had the miniatures from the 4 main traitor legions already painted, maybe had some painting guides, and I had a couple of little...
Very serendipitous by the sound of it.
Oh, it was... I mean, I jumped at it like, a moth to a flame kind of thing. I saw it, I thought, I've got everything you need, mate. I go, whatever you need from me, you let me know. And initially we were just going to use my little quick, swipe tutorials that I've already posted on Instagram. And I thought, no, I'm going to pull out all the stops here. I'm going to borrow some amazing terrain. I'm going to take some really great photos. And I've sat down and I've written out a very, very detailed step-by-step on how I do everything that I do. If you want to either copy my style, use it as a base, just the color recipes can be invaluable sometimes when you've got that analysis paralysis of, well, what paint do I use? What do I do? How many coats? What primer? It's all there, guys. So watch this space because it's coming out soon and it's very, very exciting.
I think that actually says a lot about the importance of terrain, which I often forget about. That we're so focused on the miniatures.
Yeah.
That a well painted but also well built terrain. Like you have the stock standard, but when you actually look at some of the boards or worlds that people play on have created, they put just as much effort into that than they do the miniatures themselves.
Sometimes even more so. Yeah, like as I said, my good friend Big D at _hardcore_hobby, he's a bit of a terrain master. It's actually he's actually told me before that the terrain is his favourite part of the hobby. He loves
there you go.
Yeah, customizing it, creating it, kit bashing it from mostly Games Workshop stuff, obviously, because their buildings and silos and Mechanicus stuff is unreal. But whether it's a Lord of the Rings village or whatever. It's just good fun. I personally haven't really done a lot of terrain because I've been focusing a lot on miniatures. But and as you would know,
once the armies are complete, though, that's kind of that idea.
Oh, that's the finishing touch. Yeah, the display.
It's always about space as well. Do you have enough space?
You got to be able to store it. But I mean, if anybody's ever played on a full 6x4 table filled with proper terrain at like a tournament or something like that. I mean, we play on Lego. We use Lego to make line of sight blocking terrain as like a placeholder and stuff like that. Look, it does the job, but it's just step up. Like you go from grey plastic on Lego to painted minis on Lego to painted minis on maybe like a big mouse pad, terrain mat. To then you go the full shebang where it's like a complete little world.
Now currently it's not available, but that's the why I always appreciate the local community store that actually has. The terrain or the space is set up, and they're always ready to have a game when it's available. So
really looking forward to when restrictions ease. I mean, we're very lucky where we are here in Adelaide, South Australia, that we can still go to friends' houses and do things, and social distancing is still very much in effect. But given that we have, I think, 0 active cases,
they're looking to ease the restrictions. But we'll
so I mean, we've still got the borders closed, and Australia in general is still doing pretty well, as long not as good as New Zealand, but pretty close, with the exception of Victoria. But we won't talk about them right now. There are a problem child state that didn't follow the rules so closely to begin with. But anyway, I digress.
As we know, following the rules is important, but. Speaking of which, though, in terms of, I guess, retractions or correcting mistakes, the last podcast is it Cinderfall and the Cinderfall Doom retraction that you
our first second episode and first ever retraction. So as some of you who may have listened to the previous episode would remember, I stated that I would be attending a Age of Sigmar tournament on the 1st of August. We were extremely excited. I think we recorded around the 27th of the month. So at that point, we were all still, me and the guys and everyone was still raring to go to get down there to watch the tournament, check it out, throw back a couple of beers and just, take in the social element of it, given that at that time we were still very, very good as far as COVID went. But essentially what did happen, literally the day before, so the last day of July, Cinderfall and Doom and Darkness did have to state that they weren't able to have spectators there. So I just wanted to make that clear, because obviously these guys are doing the right thing. They reduced the tournament down to competitors only, so that obviously it wouldn't have to be cancelled. And it also had a lot to do with the fact that a lot of the guys who do a lot of tournament coverage, like your various YouTube channels and podcasts and things like that, a lot of them come out of the UK and the States, and they were still obviously very much so in COVID restriction effect. And it was just the right thing to do, as far as it was either, let people come and maybe spectate, and then everyone has to wear a mask and have a bad time and blah, 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 because there's too many bodies and, capacity restrictions for venues and things like that. So unfortunately we did find out only the day before that we weren't allowed to come and watch. So that was a bit sad, but hey, look, we're moving forward. Things are getting better. There will be other tournaments, but I just wanted to, state that to our listeners that I didn't end up attending because Cinderfall and Doom and Darkness were doing the right thing, essentially. So that's all on that, basically.
But on the other, side of the coin, in terms of, not necessarily being cancelled, but kind of, I guess, minimised in terms of that risk. Warhammer keep doing what they do best and slowly drip feed and release, and we actually have some new releases, which are, I guess, always a hot topic of conversation, whether it be from those on YouTube or just I said, common collectors. So what's been happening in the 40k world? I know that the app is it still in beta, or is it
no? Well, I mean, that's a contentious one, that one. So I mean, Games Workshop obviously did shut down for a number of weeks there during the absolute pinnacle of the COVID issues, but they are definitely back on track. Releases are coming hard and fast, production's back on, all that sort of stuff. So I mean, 9th edition 40k has dropped, and along with it an app that is of varying opinions of quality depending on who you speak to. I mean, it's just one of
those. How many stars is it getting on
Apple? I don't even know. I haven't downloaded it. It's of no use to me at this point, honestly. But I've heard I've heard very, very mixed reviews. It's going to have teething issues. They always do. It has been said that maybe it was rushed and things like that. But hey, I mean, it will get better. It took them a little while to get the Azir Age of Sigmar app updated with all the General's Handbook stats and things like that. So I mean, these things do take time, and I think the war, to be fair to Games Workshop, which I do try to always devil advocate myself there when I get my knickers in a knot about something that they've done, which we all do. And I mean, you've got Warhammer, you've got List Hammer, you've got Dice Hammer, you've also got Winch Hammer. So I mean, a big part of this hobby is complaining about the company that we all love so much. We're all guilty of it to some degree, whether it be the pricing structure or this or that, or limited runs and, the Indomitable Snow Box and, made to order and blah, blah, blah. But
currently 1.6 stars, so that's out of 74 rating. So there's
not good.
There's always room for improvement. just like someone's painting critique, they can only get better from there. So
there's actually another non-official app that oh god, what's it called? Battle Force, Battle Strike. I'm not sure. It's I should have done my research, but
no, they need to take note of it then, so the community knows.
Battle Scribe got there in the end. So yeah, apparently Battle Scribe is the go-to at the moment if the 40k app is giving you the shits, which it has been upsetting quite a lot of people from the gnashing of teeth and the rending of garments that I've seen online. But
I guess speaking of getting people involved there, once again, or those that wanted to expand to another army, which is also common, there's the 40k starter sets that have just dropped.
So look, if you did miss out on the Indomitus Snow Box and didn't manage to do the made to order, or you haven't hit up a scalper or any of that sort of stuff, I mean, really the benefit to that box was it was a celebration box. You got a fancy book with a fancy cover, some tokens, some extra paraphernalia, but all the models that were available in that box, as I'm sure most of you are aware, are now being released in the new. They always do like a 3-tier starter set for the new models, so
kind of like a Kickstarter.
You got your Command Edition, your Elite Edition, and your Recruitment, and they sort of scale down accordingly. So I mean, all the new Marines, the Blade Guard, or maybe not the Blade Guard, but definitely the Blade Guard Champion, the Outriders, the new Necrons. I mean, they'll trickle them out as they go, but essentially, if you did miss out, you can start building your Necron and new Space Marine army. But
as always, the orcs are always getting bigger and badder in terms of their revised miniatures. So what's happening there in terms of
so there's a new Underworlds. I mean, this is probably a little bit dated, and by the time this is released we'll probably be a little bit more out of date, but there's a new Underworlds warband, there's the Witch Elves coming out, we've got the Gargants on the horizon, so the Sons of Behemoth, they're quite an anticipated release. The proper giants are coming out, which are going to basically enable you to have maybe like even like a 7 model army at this point.
I like the idea of although the model it's one model, but it's with the variations that come with it. The
large giant, or the Mega Gargant, I think he's referred to, is a single kit that can be made into the 3 different variations of that giant, and then so they're basically like, I guess you'd say, your characters, or they're basically the Warhammer Age of Sigmar equivalent to your Imperial Knight. That's how a lot of people are, even with their rules are very similar, I've heard, and things like that. And they can also be allied one of them can be allied into basically any army in Age of Sigmar. So, you can have an Orc army with a giant, you can have a Caradron Overlord army with a giant, and, all that sort of stuff. They're sort of a bit versatile that way, but, and then you have your regular Gargant, which is the old Gargant, which has, I think, maybe 12 or 14 variants, if I'm not mistaken, in that kit. So they're a multi-kit that you can, depending on how you glue them together and what you stick on, you can have a varied giant army, or tack them onto your ogres, or a bunch of different stuff.
Now, these models all mean nothing. We've discussed the benefit of terrain and all the new miniatures, but for some, such as yourself, which I know that you just recently posted up about, there's been a new dice drop.
New but old. So I'm very, very excited about this, and I do hope I get my hands on them. So ages ago, when the Heresy was released, you could get faction-specific Horus Heresy Legion dice, and me getting into the Heresy quite late, around 2018, had already been around for about 6 years at that point. The Sons of Horus dice were basically unattainable. I was always looking for them on eBay, secondhand, new old stock, that sort of thing. And literally as of last night, so the 3rd of September, they've announced that they are going to be releasing on pre-order tomorrow, the 5th of September, or depending on your region, that you can now buy specific color logo matched Horus Heresy Legion
that
dice.
Extra bit of personalization.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I've wanted them for so long, and I thought they'd never come back, and we don't even know if they're limited or not. So me and a bunch of the boys are getting together to do a big Forge World order to save on shipping, and we're gonna hopefully get our footage. So this is my little version of Fear of FOMO. As we talked about in the last episode with the Indomitable Snow Box. I'll be on tenterhooks if I don't get these. I'll be really, really upset. But first come, first serve and all that. And then there's obviously the
way the game is played. So yeah,
you got to be in it to win it. So.
Speaking of games, though, I mean, I haven't had the chance to sit down or rather stand and have a good game with you just in a little while. Thankfully, you've been keeping busy with the 23-day streak and what have you, but have you had a chance to play any games?
Oh, look, I have had a game. I've had a couple of games with my housemate, actually. You and I obviously haven't had a chance to play in the last month because...
school holidays are coming up soon, so I'll have a nice cheeky 2-week
the wise one is an educator, and also a little bit more on a bit of a personal note. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing that. We're about to have another little member to our family's clan added very shortly.
Future painter in the making.
Future hobbyist. So that'll be my second niece, which we're all very, very excited about. So obviously the wise one has had his hands full with more pressing
just
matters.
Like having to decide on an army, I think the biggest challenge is deciding a name.
Yeah, choosing a name. Yeah, well, I mean, at least you know the sex, so that's half the names off the table, isn't it? So that's
the base code is there.
Yeah, so I mean, I've played a couple of games using my, what's already been painted of my Caradron Overlord Barak-Nar force, and I have a pretty regular opponent who plays Destruction and Iron Jaws, led by Gordrak the Fist of Gork. So I can quite happily say that I did finally shoot old mate Gordrak off the table with my gun haulers. Finally, that was a very, very big victory for me. It's taken me about
Kodak moment.
Yeah, it's taken me about 4 games to get. I mean, he is tough stuff. It's even.
Beast.
He's even been, dubbed as possibly the toughest single character in Age of Sigmar. I know a lot of people think Archaon, the Everchosen, is the big winner, but we actually experimented, with a bit of stat hammer, a bit of dice hammer once, where if you pick Gordrak against the Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, if you get that charge and you get that snowballing, orky, stabber goodness, then he gets on a bit of a roll, and he is like an absolute freight train bat out of hell when he gets moving. So my new strategy with my battle line thunderers and my gun hauler, and then my transports and stuff like that, and I also run a little bit of I have a Lord Ordinator because I have Stormcast allies, so I run it gives all my war machines a +1 to shoot, and a little bit of a 9-inch bubble around him. So it's my little strat that I play, and it paid off great dividends.
Tenfold.
There was decimated orc fungus bits all over the table. It was fantastic. So
and
really,
that's what we want from a game.
Yeah, really chuffed with that. Make the memories. That I'll never forget the time I slew Gordrak, the Fist of Gork. It was fantastic. So
good.
So moving on to, I guess, what we call the main show topic here, which I've dubbed
Pushing the Fish.
Well, sorry, Jared's dubbed Pushing the Fish. So essentially what I want to do is just have a bit of a conversation regarding, the competitive gaming stats versus like the sales stats and the bias bubble that I sort of believe that it creates. Meta predictions, if you will, regarding things like broken armies and points costs and a lot of the stuff that... Basically, I absorb a lot of hobby content. This is where this comes from. So as I said, I'm at the bench, quite a lot.
4 hours.
Yeah, on average 4 hours a day. And, so I've always got either a podcast or, I love Rob the Honest Wargamer, GGGL, great guy, great list, stay hydrated, all that sort of stuff. He's fantastic. Warhammer Weekly is a staple. Then I listen to things like 2 Plus Tough for lore and, bits and pieces like that as well. But what I do hear a lot of is, I guess, I don't like I said, I don't like to throw shade. I don't like to call anybody a whinger or complaining. But obviously, these are the guys who get out to the tournaments. They're heavily into the list building side of things. They know the game, the actual game itself probably better than anyone else. They run events, they TO events, they participate in events, they travel for events, obviously when we're allowed to and things like that.
Yeah.
So they obviously have a lot of opinions on, certain models and armies and things like that. So I mean, you've got, and this is nothing new, this is nothing that I've invented or anything like that, just musing a little bit, but you've got what is, humbly referred to as like Space Marine syndrome or Sigmarite syndrome. And so that, is quite a commonly known thing, whereas whatever is the newest model is going to be good.
Yeah.
They write fresh rules, they make fresh models, they want to sell them. This is no, mystery here. I'm tipping that the new Lumineth elves are going to be fantastic. I think the giants will be fantastic for a time.
And a lot of people kind of move towards them whenever there's like the Malibu Stacy kind of new hat kind of idea.
It is. It's the meta chasing. Oh my God, she's got a new hat. Like it's exactly what it is. And it's like I said, it's nothing new. So I mean, 40k 9th edition just dropped, and it's no surprise that you go on the 40k portion of the Games Workshop website at the moment, and literally every single Space Marine kit is temporarily out of stock.
Yeah,
everybody's bought
which
out.
Which is great for business.
Oh, I mean, they know what they're doing. They made $250 million last year. They're no slouch. They're a publicly traded company. Yeah. This is. I'm just. This is not new information here. But the reason that I want to talk about it is, I hear a lot of complaining, whinging, opinions, pontificating about this is overpointed, this is that, this is no good. And aside from the whole Space Marine what's new is good syndrome, which everybody expects, there's a few other little, bits and pieces to the meta macro picture that I kind of put together. And I think this comes from my previous job training as a insurance underwriter. I did 4 years in insurance, and you sort of get a little bit of training on, looking between the lines and reading between the lines and things like that.
Making predictions.
Yeah, it makes you a little bit like, almost like a bit of a bullshit detector. And this is something that when I listen to all these commentaries and opinions, it's something that sort of comes to the front of my mind. Like, oh my God, how come nobody's saying this? Or maybe it's just because it's not important. I don't know, but we're about to find out. So I'd like to use the Seraphon as an example, or the Lizard Men, as they were formerly referred to. So look, they received a new book a little while ago, and it was sort of only just before everybody wasn't allowed to play anymore. So they haven't really had a proper go of it, although a lot of people have been playing, home games and when they're allowed, and Tabletop Simulator and things like that. But so essentially a very, very old model range received a new battle tome with new rules, new ways to play, new sub-factions, the Coalesce, the Starborn, and, all this sort of stuff. And they... a few of the guys in the know read this book and really, really tipped them to be the next hot thing. So, but they still haven't released any, new Seraphon miniatures, and whether they're in the pipeline or not, we never know until they're, sort of, hot off the press kind of thing. We get a bit of a look into the future. But as far as pushing the fish goes, it seems to me that not only do they obviously want to sell whatever's new, but, I just picture with the whole Seraphon thing, like the Saurus models, they're old enough to vote. You know what I mean? Like the poor old skinks, Lord Croak, old zombie toad on his floaty chair. I
remember when he's still...
yeah.
Was it Slan? The
Slan, yeah.
Slan, so I know it's not Lord... Yeah, because is Slan still playable?
Yeah, so a Slan is his species, I guess you would say. And Lord Croak is like the named... the head of the totem pole as far as the
floaty zombie.
The floaty zombie magic frogs go. So... And he's a really contentious topic at the moment. So I think he's like 320 points or something like that. And the damage output from this old frog is just out of this world, right? So, between him and I think it's the salamanders as well, which are like your fire-breathing, lizards on all fours that get sort of totted around by their little skink handlers and, spicy fire-breathing lizards kind of thing. So between Lord Croak and these salamanders, the Seraphon are... pretty much unbeatable. Yeah, hyped, unbeatable at the moment, almost to the point where they create, NPE or negative play experience when you go up against them, because you just get absolutely decimated. So it really occurs to me that not only do they make, certain factions good to sell new models, as I said before, but I liken it to an analogy I heard, and I can't remember where I did hear it initially, but it's like, if you're the ugliest dude at the party, you better bring the beer. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I just picture this Games Workshop, marketing executive going to visit the warehouse, and they've got mountains of these old lizard men models that they've printed out. All these fine cast salamanders and a whole aisle of Lord Croaks, and it's like, how can we offload these? Or we make Seraphon good. We make them the sort of hot topic.
Has it been traditional in that way of, say, with a new rule book for a certain army to then eventually have new miniatures released? Because it doesn't necessarily work the other way around.
No, it's more the case of, like, I mean, you had your old fantasy rule books and things like that, and then everybody needed a rule book when they transferred over to Age of Sigmar, and I think the Seraphon and the Lizard Men were one of the first, like 5 years ago, books.
Oh, right.
So they were due for a book refresh. Yeah, but a new book or a new faction
to
normally
have such overpowered or
it normally comes with new miniatures. So like the Caradron Overlords, for example, they burst onto the scene in 2017. New book, new minis, complete new aesthetic. Like almost like a 40k squat steampunk dwarf flying boats kind of aesthetic. Very cool stuff. As I said, I collect them myself. I love them to pieces. But it's funny because when they initially released, they apparently sold a lot of the boats and the bigger, cooler models that everybody liked. But then the way the rules actually worked out for the Caradron in their initial Battletome release was that the better army did not include any boats. So if you look at it from a sales point of view, in a bit of an objective kind of almost cynical...
How to spend your penny,
Yeah, if you wanted to run a good Caradron army, you didn't buy maybe 2 or 3 big dollar boat models. You bought a lot, and I'm talking a lot. Like, there was lists there with, I think, 90 dudes on the ground, like boots on the ground kind of thing. You ran a lot of Arcanauts, you ran Thunderers, you ran the troops, which meant you bought a lot more boxes of, what we call in Australia like the $100 box, which is like your main troop, maybe 10-man sort of average
your
kit
army
box.
Kit,
So I mean, and for a long time that was the only way to play KO, and then lo and behold, in the latest General's Handbook, I did get a little bit of inside information on this one. Sources will remain unnamed. But, the Caradron weren't selling so great. I think, whether it's because either nobody wanted to paint 90 little dudes and basically run like a Space Marine army in Age of Sigmar. People wanted to use the cool boats. But they hadn't been selling the boats because there was no point buying the boats other than from like a modelling aesthetic, enjoyment point of view. So, all the boats get a point drop, and then lo and behold, the Caradron boat fleet army is now more than a viable, almost... Some are dubbing the broken shooty army to be of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So, there's those little cycles too that I think happen in the background that people don't always take note of. Because a lot of what I hear on the YouTube channels are things like, Lord Croak needs to have his points dropped. It's like, well, maybe he needs to have his points dropped, or maybe they need to release a new Lord Croak model and everything will settle down. There's a few ways to come at that, I feel, what are your opinions on that? Do you have any?
I think I'd like to see the new models released regardless. I don't know necessarily whether with the new book they'll go ahead and make that change, but at least with the new model, there's another reason to buy them other than just saying, well, I want to have a powerful army that is always guaranteed to win on the board. So I think and as I said, the Seraphon models, most of them are old enough to vote. They're ancient, and they're not bad sculpts, but in comparison to what's being released these days with 3D printing and sculpting, it's like a whole nother level. But I do believe that there is a Seraphon Lizardman Underworlds team coming. Oh,
so that'll be like almost like a little Blood Bowl-y size force. Maybe it depends on the points. They will have to be evenly pointed in the Underworld, Shadespire, Beastgrave kind of world, because they're a set team that goes up against like a set team of dwarves or a set team of Stormcast or whatnot. So they have to be pointed correctly. But I'm looking forward to that because I'd love to see what
Do you want to make a prediction as to when we might see that? Probably not 2020, but.
It could be. You never know.
Do they make announcements late in the fourth quarter in terms of?
Well, see, everything's been pushed back because obviously with COVID and then doing the made to order and things like that. So we're only just getting pre-order for the Lumineth and the Giants coming up shortly, and the original release of the Lumineth was months ago. So I think it's the most stretched out army release they've ever had. But circumstances dictate that you have to sort of roll with the punches as far as global pandemics go. Nobody saw this sort of stuff coming. So,
is there anything, I guess, within the Sigmar world that you predict then? Because it's the kind of two worlds, so to speak.
Yeah. So this was sort of the other point I wanted to make in the whole pushing the fish segment here. So, with everything that I've said in mind, and it could just be like I said, me ranting and pontificating myself, but I always try to look into the future as far as you can be a reactive meta player as far as this army just came out. The internet says they're good. I'm going to go out and buy a shit ton of them. And that's what happened with the Bone Reapers, the Ossiarch Bone Reapers, the Undead Soldiers. The Petrifex Elite sub-faction was seen as to be, oh my god, this is amazing. And then everybody went out and bought 1 million boxes of Mortek Guard, which is, as I said, the main, what we'd call like the $100 box troop choice. And then in the most recent General's Handbook, they got a bit of a nerf. where they were then not as good anymore, and then lo and behold, all the Bone Reapers end up on eBay because the meta chasers who went hard into Bone Reapers are now either moving on to Seraphon or maybe KO.
And the workshop still, Warhammer, sorry.
Yeah.
They still, make sales.
Oh, of course. I mean, like I said, 250 million, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, my predictions, and I mean, this might not even be, everyone who's listening to this might be like, oh, Jordan, no big deal. But from what I've pieced together, there's a few things that have happened in the last sort of 6 months to a year that has made me think this is where the hotness is going to be. So, having said that, you've got Slaanesh. So Slaanesh in Age of Sigmar, your Demonettes, your Keepers of Secrets, your purple, debauchery demons, or however you want to refer to them. For the longest time, they were referred to as broken, unbelievably good, created negative play experience, and they recently got, I think, about 4 nerfs in the latest General's Handbook. And essentially a nerf, for those of you that don't know, is when something gets, if you imagine a baseball bat made of aluminium and you put a, big nerfy covering over it so it doesn't hit you as hard, the army has been nerfed. So, and that was because there was a massive outcry that Slaanesh is broken, it wins all the time, it's unbeatable, it's not fun to play, etc., etc. But if you look sort of deeper into that, then what initially happened was the meta chasers would have caught on to that. They would have gone, oh my god, Slaanesh is amazing, and they would have sold a shit ton of Slaanesh demons, So my predictions for what's going to be hot at the moment in both 40k and Age of Sigmar, Heresy obviously not being in the equation because those factions are set, and that game progresses slower and in a different way than the 2 main games of Age of Sigmar and 40k.
Understandably.
But your Khorne and your Slaanesh, I think, are going to be the hot ones to watch for a couple of reasons. So, the latest update to the Chaos Space Marine kit, as far as the $100 troop box or whatever, the CSM or the Chaos Space Marine upgrade, because the old ones were kind of short and janky and the molds were a bit old and whatnot. Yeah. If you look on the back of that box, they show Night Lords, Word Bearers, Iron Warriors, and Alpha Legion. So conveniently left off the back of the Chaos Space Marine box are your Khorne Berserkers and your Slaanesh Noise Marines. Now, this could go one of 2 ways, I predict. And the reason that I believe that these are coming is because we already have Mortarion of Nurgle, and we already have Magnus of Zench. So 2 of your main Chaos Gods currently have Demon Primarchs, and you have your Plague Marines, and you have your...
They're all set up.
Your Thousand Suns. They're set up, right? They're the initial 2. So what's left? You've got your 2 other big Chaos Gods. You've got your red Khorne boys. You've got your purple Slaanesh boys. Now, it's all but been stated completely in the lore, whether you read it, how deep you read into it or not. Fulgrim is coming. Demon Serpent Fulgrim is coming. It's in the Psychic Awakening. It's there for everyone to see. He's on his way. And I believe Demon Angron is coming too. So the Khorne and Slaanesh are going to get their Demon Primarchs. And I believe they will either get... Now, this is where I said it could go either 2 ways. They will either get a complete box each of Noise Marine / Khorne Berserkers, and the Khorne boys have obviously their bunny hat helmets and their chain axes. The Noise Marines have their purple debauchery shoulder pads with screaming faces, and they have their sonic weapons.
They'll just get an upgrade sprue kit?
Well, this is the thing, right? So currently, you can still buy really old janky Khorne Berserkers, and you can still buy really old janky Noise Marine upgrade sprues.
When you say still buy, as in within the shop, or
they're still on the website. Yeah, I was in the shop the other day, and they even have, and this is where it gets a bit dicey. The old Khorne models are like the Seraphon. I'll liken them to the Seraphon that I mentioned before. They are old enough to vote. Yeah. If you look on the sprue, we're talking, 2000-ish. These things were initially cast. They're janky. They're old. But they went to all the trouble of repainting them in a nice, fresh paint scheme, photographing them, and putting them on a fresh box. Which makes me think if they've invested that kind of money, then they're probably going to continue to release them, or they have a warehouse full of them that they want to get rid of. Hence,
so the same idea,
pushing the fish. So, the Noise Marine upgrade sprue, however, is molded and scaled to the old. They call them the firstborn or the manlets or the small Space Marines type of thing. So you upgrade your initial Space Marine TAC Marines with the Emperor's Children bits and pieces to make them the sonic weaponed Noise Marines, or you just buy the flat out kit of Khorne Berserkers. So they're either going to clear out the old stock of this, God knows how much of this stuff they've got in the warehouse, or they left them off the new box on purpose because they're going to get their own kits. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So And none of this has been factually stated on any, Warhammer websites. It's not on Warhammer Community yet. Yeah. It's just my prediction. Hypotheses, hyperbole, prediction, etc. And I mean, it's not news that obviously Khorne and Slaanesh are due for a Demon Primarch. Obviously, they got Tzeentch and Nurgle out of the way first, and all that sort of stuff. And then the icing on this little prediction Sunday, or the cherry rather, on top of this little prediction Sunday, of course, is the recent revelation that your old little firstborn manlet Marines, who were previously 1 wound compared to your new 2 wound Primaris Marines, which obviously the 2 wound Primaris was
big difference.
Well, yeah, I mean, they brought in bigger, stronger, tougher Marines with the true scale. The lore behind them was that obviously they're bigger, they're tougher, they're stronger. Yeah. They've got extra organs. They're juiced up harder. They get 2 wounds, whereas the old Marines got 1. But now all the old Marines are getting 2 wounds, which is going to totally change the dynamic of gameplay and all that sort of stuff. So not only is my hot pick that the meta prediction will be Khorne and Slaanesh, and also just Chaos Space Marines in general, because not only are they due for some new cool models that they'll want to sell, but they also just got tougher on the tabletop with 2 wounds.
They've had their vitamins and Weet-Bix.
They did. They've had their vitamin C, their vitamin D. They're eating their Nutrigrain. They're raring to go. The Milo, the whole 9 yards. So I really think that's what's going to happen. So I guess if you're one that chases the meta and you really want to get ahead as far as that goes, I think a safe bet for both systems would be your Khorne or Slaanesh Demons, because I think they're going to get looked at again rules wise. And then if you're playing 40k, your 2 wound Chaos Space Marines with all their janky weirdo weapons and stuff they get. I mean, the Primaris have just had a massive release as well with a whole bunch of new weapons and fancy models and things like that, as well as the Necrons. But I think they're going to be the ones to watch personally.
So we'll have to wait and see what will be hitting shelves. Maybe not by the end of this year, but potentially.
Oh, look, I'm thinking 2021. Yeah, I mean, they've got to get, they've been focusing on 40k pretty hard lately with the 40k 9th edition drop and Indomitus and all that sort of stuff. The new Crons or the Necrons or whatever, but now, then they'll do the inevitable swing back to Age of Sigmar, and they'll focus on the Gargants and the Elves, and they'll give
Which
them...
makes sense.
Yeah, because Sigmar's been...
keep everyone happy.
Yeah, during the drop of 9th edition, Sigmar has been slightly neglected, but that's just the way the cycle goes, and it was only exacerbated by COVID, I think, anyway. Yeah. So yeah, that's my little serving up of the fish, as we've called it, as we've dubbed it. So yeah, do with that as you will.
Now, I guess as we come to the close of this podcast, and it's a correct recording this time round, are there? It's nice to kind of acknowledge those that have listened, those that have helped you get to where you are, or just simply those that have inspired you to, like you said already, commit to 23 days of hobbying. So
yeah, look, most definitely. And as I said, the reason that my brother and I are doing this podcast, and the reason I do my Instagram and my giveaways and stuff, is to give back to such a great community. Like, I've been part of many internet communities over the years. I used to build and collect classic cars.
It is only what it is because of this.
And I used to be on like car forums and bike forums and engage with those communities. And everyone knows the internet can be a nasty, prickly place sometimes. It can be quite a toxic place. But the Warhammer Instagram community
flourishes.
Specifically, not only flourishes, but the positivity, the inclusion, the just overwhelming sense of community. It's the only word you can really use for it. It is a proper community. Like, I have legitimate friends that I consider in other countries that I've never met or heard their voices before, but we talk on a regular basis. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time to do, I guess, round out the show with a few little shout outs and share a bit of the hobby love, as it were.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we'll kick off with my 2 local lads, so Big D and Bilbo Schwaggins from the D6 Fix. So they have a YouTube channel called the D6 Fix, and they delve into all things gaming, lore, hobby related to do with the Middle-earth and Lord of the Rings games.
Still going strong after all these years.
Yeah, so look, that's their bag, and they're definitely in our little state of South Australia. They're, the 3 guys on there, so you've got... you got D, you got Bill, and you got Coach. They're probably 3 of the most experienced Lord of the Rings Middle-earth players, definitely in our state, possibly in the country. So if that's your bag and that's your baggins rather, and that's what you want to get into and hear about, then I very much recommend you checking out the D6 Fix on YouTube. And they're both on Instagram as well. So Big D is hardcore_hobby, who I mentioned before. Thank you for lending me that magnificent terrain for my photo shoot. Yeah. And Bilbo Schwaggins is Da, as in DA_bristles. Not only does he do Middle-earth as well, he's also a Heresy brother who's currently working on some amazing Ultramarines and some Emperor's Children for our upcoming sort of Heresy gaming group. So thanks a lot, guys. I know you've been massive supporters of my Instagram and the podcast, and love you, boys. Thanks a lot. All right, so they're my local boys, but now we'll move on to some of the Insta crew. So as I said, I've got friends, literally got friends all over the world now that I talk to on near daily basis, about hobby, about life, about all kinds of things, and I just wanted to give them a bit of a shout out. So in no particular order, I highly recommend you get into the search bar on Instagram and you check out the following guys and gals. So we've got from Australia, Raptor_Imperialis, always an inspiration for my Heresy. I think he's literally painted at least one of every legion. He's currently kicking absolute ass, doing beautiful Emperor's Children conversions. He's done Alpha Legion, he's done Sons of Horus, which were one of the big inspirations for my own force. So I constantly am at your profile, so thanks, dude, really appreciate it. From the UK, we've got Uplander, the Lord Commander of the Velka Fenriker. So he's got, oh my god, I think it's up near the maybe 14,000 points of Space Wolves at the moment.
And counting.
Yeah, massive in the Heresy. He's on the 30k channel. You can check out his amazing army. His current project actually is not wolves, funnily enough. It's the Celestial Lions, or the Leonis Astra. He's just made a grav bike conversion for the new Primaris Outrider bike. So that's really, really hot stuff. I mean, this is stuff GW hasn't even done yet. So yeah, check out Uplander on Instagram. Amazing, amazing stuff. Another guy that I really, really look up to when it comes to especially the painting and modeling side of things is a guy from Germany called Hendarian.
Creamy.
Oh my god, the creamiest, if there was a pantheon of painting gods. oh my god, I love this guy. Yeah, he is aspirational. I sit there and drool at his profile. Check him out. He paints mostly Eldar, but he does do Imperial Fists and Space Marine stuff as well. Just the depth and the creaminess and I could salivate for hours on Hendarian. So yeah, suss him out. Next up, another boy from the UK. We've got the Fortunate Son of Horus. He's actually just made a resurgence into the Sons of Horus. He already had, I think, about 5,000 points of beautifully painted Sons of Horus. Also features on the 30k channel in the Peterborough area there. Peterborough, Nottinghamshire Gaming League that they all play in on the 30k channel. Shout out to David Brains, obviously, who runs the 30k channel. Amazing work, amazing terrain. Love your work, man. And he also has a Middle-earth podcast called Out of the Frying Pan as well. So he not only does the Horus Heresy, he has a Night Lord's army, he has Imperial Fists as well, but he also is very heavily into Middle-earth. And he's also doing Sisters of Battle now too in 40k. So he's touching on all the systems. So something for everybody there. A big loving shout out to my good friend, the Mini Painting Papa, my brother from a Fenris-born mother. He's a good mate of mine that I made friends with after he did a influencer interview on yours truly a little while back, where I was in the lineup with some pretty big names like James Wapple and Andy Wardle and some guys like that, and I was absolutely just chuffed to be part of it. And we stayed in touch since. We've got another little top secret project on the go, which I won't reveal now, but I'm sure that will sort of come to light later on. Yeah, and he's recently, through his interviewing skills and stuff, been snapped up by the Warhammer blog. So really, really sort of big boon for him. And so yeah, Mini Painting Papa, check him out. Amazing stuff. The next guy on here is literally, in my eyes, the War Master. He's unbelievable. He, along with my own connection to the Sons of Horus, this guy's profile, Dawn's Arrow, his name is Dawn's Arrow on Instagram. He is unbelievable. His Sons of Horus are not only probably, I think, the best Sons of Horus army I've ever seen painted, but I will go out as far to say the best Horus Heresy army I've seen modelled and painted, period, to date. I mean, just the thematic bits he's used, the poses, the painting style. I mean, he's got tutorials on his blog spot as well. If you like the Horus Heresy, and especially the Sons of Horus, Dawn's Arrow is where it's at. Love your work, man. Really, really amazing stuff. Next up, definitely my I'd see it's hard to pick favourites here. It's like Sophie's Choice with this stuff. But I mean, I love this guy's Emperor's Children. They are, in my eyes, they are the Emperor's Children. You've got rawdoc_mini, the perfect purple surgeon. Does amazing work. So if you love the Emperor's Children, you'll love his stuff. It's unbelievable stuff. Some of it's even featured on the Warhammer Games Workshop website, as far as, you know, he's been contacted by Warhammer community to have his pictures put on there, you know, when you slide on the model for the example shots and things like that. So do yourself a favor, check him out. We also have Bagel Paints, the High Lord of Caliban, Brennan. So if you're a Dark Angels fan, you must must check out this guy's profile. Amazing. I'm using the word amazing over and over again, but I'm amazed by all these guys. These are the guys I follow. They're in my feed daily. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. I think he's got himself an Indomitus box, and we'll definitely see some beautiful Deathwing Blade Guard coming out soon, I'm pretty sure, or Dreadwing. Sorry, man, if I got that wrong. I'm not so up on the Dark Angel stuff, but if you like them mean and you like them green, check out Bagel Paints. Another favourite of mine, my dude, I always get your name wrong when I say it out loud, even though I read it every day. So it's _Excelis _Milia. Did I get that right, Jared?
I think so.
It's like,
it's not Excelsius. So
no, I always want to say Excelsior. Yeah, so it's a bit of a dyslexic thing for me, I think, when I read it. So _Excelsis _Miller. My dude, you absolute Swedish wizard. Magnus can do no wrong. He recently just hit 300 followers on Instagram. His stuff's amazing. 1,000 Suns, all day, every day. Praise be to Zench. Check him out. Love his stuff. Another local boy from Melbourne, so the next state over, the problem child state that I mentioned earlier that we won't talk about. But my boy Custard Workshop, my brogo who paints like creamy yogo. This guy does custodies like you've never seen before. So they're not your traditional gold custodies. He paints in probably one of the hardest colours to paint, is like your beige, you know, Ushabti bone kind of flavour there. But if you love the custards, the custodies, you need to check out the Custard Workshop. Massive props to those guys. Two guys that I want to give a special mention to, not only just for hobby reasons, but for I like to call them my mental health warriors. They're two guys who are not only massive heresy nuts, but they make a real point to essentially be there for the community, as far as, you know, if you ever need a chat, or, you know, you're feeling down or you're feeling isolated because of COVID, they constantly, you know, post up on their Instagram pages their stories and everything. You know, I'm here for you. I'm here to talk. You're not alone, etc., 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 etc. So you've got the chain axe wielding Viking Eater of Worlds. That's Grizzly Vegeta. Amazing. Probably the most dynamically posed Marines I've ever seen in my life. His World Eater army, unbelievable. And he's recently forayed into the Imperial Fist. So big up you, bruv. Love your work. And my other mental health warrior is Omegon Edge. Now, Joshua's a massive voice on Instagram. He paints beautiful Alpha Legion, and he never toils because he paints with oils. And he's I'm in a painting Discord with him and Dawn's Arrow and a bunch of the other guys, and it's just a bloody good time. And as I said, they both make a massive effort to be there for the community, not only spreading the hobby love, but spreading the, you know, mental health awareness and things like that. So really important stuff. Keep up the great work, guys. Love your work. Can't say enough about you. And then just to round off some of my other boys there, we've got Armageddon Bound, the Brooklyn Templar, my dark at heart punk rocker who paints amazing, gritty, grungy Black Templars. He's also got an Indomitus box because he's churning out some awesome Blade Guard at the moment. And if you look a bit further back in his profile, you see some amazingly converted 40k Emperor's Children, you know, Slaashi Demon, Flawless Host kind of things. Really, really beautiful stuff. A recent sort of addition to the Lamian Maximus, I don't know, we'll call it a crew, or my little retinue of boys that I follow on there, is Balthazar Gelt. Recently sold what I believe to be possibly the most beautiful Caradron Overlord army, and I was so upset that I wasn't in the, you know, financial state with all the, you know, COVID-ness to, you know, put my hand in the ring to buy that one there. I can't believe he sold it, dude. Anyway, but check out his profile. Everything from, you know, Age of Sigmar to some old fantasy stuff as well that he's got on there. He's sort of reeling out. He hasn't been on Instagram long, but he's got an amazing backlog of photographs of minis that he's painted and sold. He's one of those guys who paints brilliantly and then is somehow able to paint apart with his, you know, hours and hours of beautiful work. So Balthazar Gelt, check that out. Next one on the list here is the Humble Brush Studio. So a painter who slays a painter who slays, not a painter who plays. So he doesn't play, and he does make he is adamant about advertising that fact there. But he does amazing tutorials. He's currently just painted a amazing display base for upcoming diorama displays and things like that. But focusing on Necrons and all kinds of bits and pieces there. So the Humble Brush Studio, check him out. And then another local duo, actually, not a single person here. We've got Creative Micromanagement. So it's actually
I like that name.
Yeah, it's a local couple here in Adelaide, South Australia. Some friends of mine. So he who builds and she who paints. They're a duo who does double duty there as far as that goes. They build, they play.
The perfect waltz.
Yeah, exactly. They have an amazing Sons of Horus army, which is I think actually been featured by Warhammer community as well. They're currently kicking off with some beautiful Blood Angels, Heresy Blood Angels, and they also do like Mordheim and some bits and pieces like that. So yeah, do yourself a favor. Check out that list of guys and girls that I've spruiked there, and I just can't say enough. Good. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you for all your contributions to the community, and it's just my heart fills to the brim. It really does. So thanks, guys. Really, really appreciate it.
And I guess that comes to the end of episode 2.
Yeah, episode 2, pushing the fish in the bag.
That's it. I'll give a shout out to my darling wife and daughter who support me in my, I guess...
tolerating the time away.
Well, yeah, the backseat gaming for the time being in terms of still enjoying it and the lore and the activities, but she does worry that I'll lose a couple of hours to it eventually once a week, but for the time being, still very supportive. So,
look, shout out to my beautiful sister-in-law and the precious cargo that she is carrying, but I think you do need to remind her that I am no longer bugging you to get a motorcycle.
That's it.
So look for that silver lining there.
Lesser of two evils.
Plastic toy soldiers versus, dangerous machine. I think she could call that a win.
That's a beautiful compromise.
All right, so once again, thanks again, guys, for listening.
Thank you.
Hope to see you next time for episode 3. I think we'll leave it there.
That's it.
Love you, bro.
Love you, bro.
See ya.